Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and coming up in today's newscast, Israel is outraged by a new investigation that's set to be launched by the International Criminal Court. As the new year approaches, we'll reveal just how many people have immigrated to Israel in the past decade. And get ready, because Santa Claus is already making his way through Jerusalem. The International Criminal Court is targeting Israel, and Israeli officials are outraged. Take a look. Top Israeli officials could now all face prosecution following a decision by the International Criminal Court to investigate war crimes allegedly committed in the Palestinian territories. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is blasting the move, calling it a political tool against the Jewish state.
This is a dark day for truth and justice. The ICC prosecutor has apparently decided not to dismiss outright the Palestinian claim against the State of Israel. This is a baseless and outrageous decision. The court has no jurisdiction in this case. The ICC only has jurisdiction over petitions submitted by sovereign states, but there's never been a Palestinian state.
Israel has refused to sign up to the International Criminal Court since its creation in 2002. The probe would apparently look into Israel's policy of settling its citizens in Judea and Samaria, or the West Bank, its actions during the 2014 war in Gaza, and its response to the Palestinian protests on the Gaza Strip border with Israel. Prime Minister Netanyahu is accusing the ICC's chief prosecutor, Fatou Bensouda, as using the investigation to challenge the Jewish right to Israeli land.
The ICC prosecutor's decision has turned the International Criminal Court into a political tool to delegitimize the State of Israel. The prosecutor has completely ignored the legal arguments we presented to her. She has also completely ignored history and truth when she says that the very act of Jews living in their ancestral homeland, the land of the Bible, that this is a war crime.
The ICC chief prosecutor doesn't seem to be showing any signs of slowing down, however, and the Palestinian Authority is welcoming the probe, even though it will also investigate the Palestinians by looking into Hamas's targeting of Israeli civilians and its use of Palestinian civilians as human shields.
In brief, I am satisfied, 1, that war crimes have been or are being committed in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem and the Gaza Strip. 2, that potential cases arising from this situation would be admissible. And 3, that there are no substantial reasons to believe that an investigation would not serve the interest of justice.
Israel is reportedly planning to refuse to cooperate with the investigation. The Prime Minister, Defense Ministers, IDF chiefs, and heads of the Shin Bet security service who have worked over the past 5 years could all face the danger of prosecution. That's because the ICC deals with the prosecution of individuals for alleged crimes rather than states. Private Israeli organizations could potentially defend those that are prosecuted, but the Israeli government says they will not work with the probe in any formal capacity.
We will not be silent. We will not bow our heads before this outrage. We'll continue to speak out against this travesty of justice.
Well, joining us now via Skype is Professor Avi Bell from the Faculty of Law at Bar-Ilan University to discuss the implications of the International Criminal Court launching an investigation into crimes in the Palestinian territories. Now, why is this taking place right now, and why is Israel so upset, especially since Palestinians are also being probed?
Well, it would be incorrect to actually see this as happening right now. This is a multi-year process. This started more than 5 years ago. There's been a preliminary investigation going on. What will be next now is an investigation that will eventually lead to charges against Israelis. It's a political process rather than a legal process, so everyone knows in advance what the ultimate results will be. There will be charges against Israelis. There will not be charges against Palestinian terrorists. That's the reason why Hamas, the leadership of Hamas, was openly rejoicing about the decision of the prosecutor And that's why Israeli leaders from across the political spectrum have denounced the process.
Now, if Israel refuses to take place in this probe, can Israeli officials still be prosecuted? How does this work?
Well, the International Court can do whatever it wants. According to the law, it does not have jurisdiction over Israeli officials because Israel's not a state party. But that won't stop the International Criminal Court. It's very clear, not only from what the prosecutor said, but from the three-judge panel before whom this decision is going to fall, that they've already settled on their course. Their course is to bring charges against Israelis, and it doesn't really make a difference what the law is. Right. And so they will ultimately bring charges against Israelis. There's no question about that.
And then how does that play out?
At that point, Israel will have the choice of either cooperating or not cooperating. I do believe that the Israeli leadership is smart enough to understand, as Prime Minister Netanyahu said, that this is all a political farce. Right. And so they may order Israelis to show up to the kangaroo court, but I don't think that the Israelis will.
Now, what is the implication of this probe, this investigation, in terms of how the IDF functions? Because back in 2009, the UN Human Rights Council issued the Goldstone Report, which accused Israel for war crimes during the 2008 to 2009 Gaza war. What was the outcome of that, and did anything change in terms of how the IDF functions?
The IDF has always had a very rigorous system of checking to make sure that its procedures and follow the laws of war, and that its soldiers obey those rules. These procedures are being updated all the time to make them more effective, but there really isn't all that much more that can be done. What the ICC is going to be pursuing are fake crimes, and if one wants to make accusations of fake crimes, it has really nothing to do with the actual practice of anyone.
What do you mean by that, fake crimes? Can you kind of delve a little bit more into that?
Well, there's two kinds of charges that the ICC is heading towards. One set of them is alleged Israeli war crimes. What we're talking about there are real laws that have to do with war crimes. There are certain things that one must not do in combat. Israel obeys those rules. The Palestinians don't, and for that reason, the ICC is going to bring charges against Israelis and not Palestinians. That is because it's ignoring the law and following the politics. The other kind of charge that the ICC is aiming towards is towards actions that have never been seen as criminal anywhere in the world, such as the act of Jews living in territories that were unlawfully occupied by Jordan between 1948 and 1967.
All right. Well, the final thing that I wanted to ask you, because I just think that this is so interesting. Israel has convicted many of its own soldiers for violating the IDF's ethical code. And that is because the IDF sticks to this ethical code very ferociously, you could say. Now, is the same being done on the Palestinian side? And is this taken into consideration in any, in the ICC probe more specifically?
Of course it's not. Of course it's not taken into account by the ICC probe. You're exactly right that Israel takes the laws of war very, very seriously, and it prosecutes its own soldiers when they fail to obey those rules. And the Palestinians not only don't take seriously the laws of war, they deliberately violate them all the time. And they deliberately violate them all the time because they know that they will be judged in international institutions like the ICC, which give the Palestinians a free pass for any illegal actions and will always accuse Israel unfairly and wrongly. So nothing will change on the Palestinian side until institutions like the ICC are willing to apply the law and apply it fairly.
All right. Well, it's going to be, very interesting to see how this plays out. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, Israeli officials and soldiers could face prosecution now that the International Criminal Court is launching an investigation into crimes that have taken place in the Palestinian territories over the last 5 years. And joining us now in the studio is Emil Hyman, an IDF reservist who served in the 2014 Gaza war. Today, he's an activist for the nonprofit organization My Truth, and we're about to learn a little bit more about that. So, Emil, My Truth allows soldiers to speak openly about the ethical dilemmas and complexities that they face in the battlefield, which is obviously not simple, and how that essentially affects their ability to work by the IDF's ethical code. Can you tell us about a personal experience that you've had where you've had to deal with that type of situation?
Yes, so in 2014, my unit fought in the Gaza war, and I'm in the unit. And one of the missions that we had was to locate an infirmary built by UNRWA. And inside this infirmary, we had to detect a attack tunnel. And I don't need to explain here what an attack tunnel is. It goes straight to the Israeli communities, and if we can't find it, it has high consequences. When we got to the infirmary, one of the stuff that, we went before we got into every house, we sent first in dogs to sniff out if they could find any ammunition, any explosives. And then we sent in a unit that specializes in ammunition, and we couldn't find anything. So because the urgency of finding this attack tunnel, we decided to go in. 2.5, 3 hours later, the infirmary blew up on us. We lost 3 of our friends, 3 of the guys from our unit, Matan Gottlieb, Guy El-Grenati, and Omer Chai, and 21 were injured. When the war in Gaza was over, they sat us all down. The head of the unit came, and intelligence officers came and explained to us the reason that we couldn't find any of the explosives. They explained to us that in 2006, when UNRWA built the infirmary, Hamas put the explosives inside the foundations of the house. That way, there was no chance of us finding the explosives. While we're here, Hamas knowing the weak points of Israel, knowing that Israel would never hit a civilian post, Israel would do anything to move civilians out of their way, they're using places like infirmaries, hospitals, kindergartens to attack us and using them as human shields against us.
So you're talking about a much wider issue here. I mean, how does it feel for you to hear about the ICC's investigation into the IDF? What is your response to that?
It's an outrage. There's no shivyon. There's no we sent equality. We sent the court in Hague a year ago 10 testimonies of Israeli soldiers explaining exactly that there were war crimes against them by all kind of terrorist groups that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And the Hague court completely ignored it, didn't even respond. Yes, no, we'll look into it. Didn't even respond to us. So there's no...
Right. Well, and I think that, something that we mentioned before in the previous interview is that the IDF really does respond to ethical violations of its own code. So for this to now be, put in an international arena, it's very hard for a lot of the soldiers and reservists who serve today. Well, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your stories.
Thank you.
All right, well, we are about to enter a new decade, and Israel's population has grown significantly, but we're not talking about babies, no, we're talking about immigrants. Now, to discuss the latest in the diaspora is ILTV's Shanna Foltz. So, Shanna, tell us a little bit about the numbers here.
Okay, so 250,000 immigrants have come to Israel in the last 10 years, which is huge, and that's from 150 different countries.
150 different countries. And this year alone was actually one of the biggest immigration waves in the last decade as well, right?
This year alone, we had 34,000 immigrants come. Now, 44% of the immigrants that have come to Israel since Israel's been founded in 1948 came after 1990.
And that is very interesting.
Yes, and we're also having a huge wave just within the last 10,000.
Okay, so where are these immigrants coming from? I mean, I'm assuming there are a lot of people coming from the United States, Russia.
Now, when I said in the last 10,000, I meant in the last 10 years.
In the last 10 years.
In the last 10 years. Now, 67,000 came from Russia. Okay. We have 46,000 from Ukraine, 38,000 from France, 32,000 from the U.S., where I come from, and 10,500 from Ethiopia. Now, these are huge numbers to come in the last 10 years.
Do you know why that is? Why they're making their way over right now in the last 10 years?
Now, everyone has their different reason for needing to come to Israel or wanting to come to Israel. Some people feel that they are Zionists and they believe in the state of Israel. Some people come because they are dealing with economic hardships. Right. Now, one country that I thought was very interesting and surprising was Brazil.
Okay.
Brazil, in 2014, had about 200 immigrants coming to Israel from Brazil each year. Now, since 2017, we've had 600 Brazilians come every year. So that's triple.
Right. Is there a specific reason for that number?
I think that when times get hard with jobs and people find trouble with economically, they say, why not just get up and join my people who have something moving forward and progressing in Israel?
Yeah, well, it's very interesting because back in the day, there was kind of more of an ideological reason to immigrate to this country, and now we're also seeing economic benefits. Shanna, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Very interesting. All right, this is a totally different story. Thousands of Israelis who belong to the National Maccabi Healthcare Clinic are learning some very scary news today. A computer glitch is responsible for distorting the amount of medication that they've been prescribed, swapping out milligrams for milliliters. Now, luckily, pharmacists told patients the dosage didn't seem right and that they should bring the prescription back to their doctors. Patients have not reported experiencing any medical complications as a result of the issue, but reports say that the system has now been fixed. The glitch affected people who picked up medications between Tuesday and Thursday of last week, about 3,000 people in total. Very scary, but luckily that was handled. All right, now we have always loved Israeli TV, but over the last decade, more and more American TV executives have been adapting Israeli TV series into Hollywood hits. And that's right, Netflix and HBO hits like Atypical, Euphoria, and In Treatment all came from Israel. And now the New York Times has just named an Israeli TV series as the best series of the decade. Well, ILTV's Emmanuel Kadosh is here, of course, with the details. Emmanuel.
Hey, Natasha. So are you sure you're ready for this? Because it's pretty exciting. The New York Times has named the Israeli series Chatufim, or Prisoners of War, as the best international TV show of the decade. This is a huge deal given, you know, Israel only had one channel up until 1993.
Now, this is the show that inspired the American series Homeland, right?
That's right. Homeland was considered to be inspired by Chatufim, and it also adapted into an Indian and Russian series as well, which I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
The show, for those who haven't seen it, depicts 3 Israeli soldiers who were captured 17 years previously while on a mission with their unit in Lebanon. The show was written and directed by Gideon Raff, who also wrote and directed the Netflix series The Spy, in which English-Jewish actor Sacha Baron Cohen portrayed the Israeli spy Eli Cohen that we've reported on.
Right.
For those interested in watching the series Chatufim, it's streaming on Hulu in the United States and on Netflix here in Israel. I said Hulu in a very Israeli accent.
Hulu.
Yeah.
All right, now, it was such a great show, and it was kind of the starting point that I would say for people to take Israeli-made content more seriously in Hollywood, but that wasn't the only show that made the list, right?
Right. Well, actually, the hit counterterrorism thriller Fauda also took a spot on the 30 best shows list, which was an absolute epic show that was raved about all over the world for its depiction of the experience of an Israeli undercover unit in the Palestinian territories.
Now, that show is actually in both Arabic and Hebrew and has received a lot of praise for its even-handedness when it comes to covering the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I absolutely love this show.
Me too.
And for Israelis, it was actually one of the first series that really humanized Palestinian terror operatives. I know that sounds weird, but many Israelis say that it made it easier for them to understand the emotions that led to the behavior of some of the terrorists that were depicted in the series.
It also helped a lot of us internationals kind of get a better view, into the world.
But it was
of the
an
IDF.
Israeli perspective.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Actually, the Israeli show Shtitzel and Our Boys received honorable mentions as well. However, the HBO series Our Boys got a lot of backlash from the Israeli community and government because they felt like it didn't portray Israel in the best of light. There was actually a letter that was sent to HBO which protested the angle of the series by 120 Israelis who lost relatives, both soldiers and civilians. So it's of course an honor to be mentioned on that list, but I'm not so sure how the Israeli community feels about that one being praised.
Well, I've seen all of these shows, and I can definitely agree with you that everyone should add them to their binge, whether or not they agree with what is being presented. But Emmanuel, thanks for the update. Very exciting news.
Of course.
All right, guys, it is almost Christmas, and you'll never believe who is already making the rounds in Jerusalem. Take a look. That's right, Santa Claus himself has been ho-ho-hoing his way through the holy city of Jerusalem. And no, he didn't bring his trusty reindeer. He has a trusty old Middle Eastern camel to do the job. If you're wondering why he's out in the public a couple of days early, well, it's because he's distributing free Christmas trees to residents of the holy city. It's all part of an annual project organized by the Jerusalem municipality to help celebrate the Christian holiday in the city, which is believed to contain the sites of Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection. tens of thousands of Christian pilgrims visit Jerusalem every year, so if you didn't make it in time for Christmas this time around, no worries. Santa Claus will be back next year to hand out even more holiday cheer.
Christmas, everybody! Ho, ho, ho!
I love his shoes. All right. I'm not sure who enjoyed that more, Santa Claus or the people of Jerusalem. But while we are on the topic of Christmas and the holiday season, ILTV's Nittany Manson is here to give us a little bit of a holiday pop culture update. So Nittany, what do you have for us besides donuts or sufganiyot, as they say in Hebrew?
Well, before we get to these guys, Natasha, I think no holiday season is really complete unless we get our fair share of viral videos.
Yep, that is absolutely fair. And gifts,
but the best part.
Yes.
So I brought a few in that I thought were the most fun to get into the holiday season. And the first one we're going to start with, obviously, the Queen of Christmas, Mariah Carey. She was featured on Billy Eichner's Billy on the Street, and let's take a look.
Hi, Mariah Carey.
Happy Hanukkah.
Yes, isn't it time Mariah recorded a Hanukkah song? Absolutely. Okay, well, for a menorah, finish these lyrics. Are you ready? All right. Okay, here we go. Ready? Dreidel, 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 I made it out of clay.
I'm not looking, and
when it's dry and ready. Oh, dreidel, I shall play. Yes, that's your
It's
menorah!
dreidel, I will play.
What was it?
I think it's dreidel, I will play.
It's, dreidel, I will play. Goodbye! Wrong!
He's just like the most aggressive human on the planet.
He's so aggressive.
But Mariah Carey is turning to Hanukkah spirit, finally.
You know, she is the Queen of Christmas. We love her. Finally, after 25 years, All I Want for Christmas Is You has reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 list.
But she's singing about Hanukkah.
She's trying to take Hanukkah. You know what? Can she take Christmas? Can we have our own? Like, does she need both of them?
That's fair. That's fair. We do have Adam Sandler. We do have Adam Sandler, though. He's
my favorite part of this is she's making it very clear she doesn't need to read the words. She knows this. She is all over Hanukkah.
Yeah, that is fair. All right, so what is up next? What is up next?
So next we have James Corden, who we of course know from
James Corden.
Carpool Karaoke.
Yeah.
He does crosswalk musicals, but now he has a new special Hanukkah song.
All right, let's hear
Let's
it.
take a look.
But ain't no light shine brighter than the one in your eyes. Got a week in a day of love for you. This Hanukkah girl, sparkling eyes reflect the flame. Your perfect lips sing out the prayer we're both expressing. You make a lock up, call it my name. Got a week.
I think your face just says it all, Natasha. This was his take, of course, on Boys to Men. It was Boys to Menorah.
Boys to Menorah.
Boys to
okay.
Menorah.
That makes sense, I guess.
The boy band version of Hanukkah.
Yeah,
What could be better?
obviously. This is so random. Okay, well, I actually really appreciated that, and I want to watch the full video.
I think you
so
should.
thank you for giving us something to celebrate. But in the meantime, I think it's time for us to light our first candle of Hanukkah.
First
Let's see if I
night
can
of
handle
Hanukkah.
this. It's so scary. I hope that we don't get in trouble for lighting candles inside the
right,
studio.
you
And yeah, obviously
light
we have
your
to have a
candle.
donut. There we go.
Happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah. Let's
Sufanya.
make sure that doesn't fall.
Burn the studio down, Natasha.
No, there we go. All right.
There you go. Cheers. Happy
Cheers.
Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah. All right. Oh, having a bite, but let's take a look at the weather forecast. All right, it doesn't look like Israel's going to be seeing a snowy Christmas, although it is getting chillier. Sunday is looking at a high of 69 degrees Fahrenheit or 21 degrees Celsius with partly cloudy skies. And Monday should be around the same temperature, but skies should be fully sunny, so make sure to wear some sunscreen. All right, now before we say goodbye, here's a look at what is going viral in Israel. It turns out here in Israel, some people are figuring out how to celebrate as many holidays as they can.
Amen. Attends, Déborah, vas-y.
Oui, rabbin, voilà.
Vas-y, vas-y.
That is what you call taking full advantage of the holiday spirit, Christmas and Hanukkah in one. All right, guys, that is it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.48 shekels to the American dollar. For more news from ILTV, please like ILTV on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube. I'm Natasha Kirchek, and thanks so much for watching. Whoa.